Hi, Dan. Hi. You're on mute. Yeah, there you go.
Good morning, and how are you this morning?
Hey, I'm okay. How you doing? You ready for this?
Sure, why not?
I hate meetings on Monday mornings, but oh well, here we go. We can do it once a month. Is there anything you want to touch base on before I start letting people in?
I don't think so. Just, jump in, redirect me anytime that's needed.
Oh, you'll be fine. Okay. Right. Everybody's so timely. Hey, Adam.
Hey, yeah,
Hi.
just terrified of being late. It was ingrained in me at a very early age.
Oh, really?
Yeah, growing up on a farm, it was like, phew, if you were late and it was, I tell people I've had two bad bosses in my life, my grandpa and my dad, because they were just like brutal, like, 6 a.m., don't be late, because they were already out there. So, yeah. But,
What would happen if you were late?
oh, you just work longer.
Oh.
Yeah, and then they'd just be grumpy all day, right? And like, I don't know, my dad still has this way of like conveying a real clear point without saying a single word. And so
Mm-hmm.
it was
Mm-hmm.
very clear the disappointment. But if we showed up earlier on time, sometimes we'd get off at noon and they'd let us go to the river for the afternoon in the summer. So if
Mm.
you showed up early, there might be an incentive as well. So
Mm-hmm.
how have
Yeah.
you been, Christy? I feel like I haven't seen you for a couple weeks.
Oh yeah, I am okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was out a little bit. We've been dealing with loss of our sweet dog, and my partner's father passed, so we
Oh
were
my
in
gosh.
Philly for a funeral, and
I'm
yeah,
so
been a bit
sorry.
of a rough April. Glad for
Yeah,
May to be around the corner.
I'm so sorry. I'll
Thank you.
put out some good energy for you guys.
Thank you.
That's both of those are incredibly challenging.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yes, it has been. Um, well, hey everybody. Good to see you. I'm so excited. We're gonna have like some new people in the space. Um,
Jill Archer on the other side now. Ooh.
hmm
Excited to be here.
Yay, excited to have you. And we've already got our quorum. This is incredible.
Dan, do you want me to pull up the agenda and we can
Yeah, that would be great.
look through the group agreements and all the things? Okay.
So I guess we go through the group agreements verbally, correct?
Yeah, we usually read them out. Hmm.
Okay. Um, we give another 1 minute for people to arrive.
Oh boy. Here we go. All right. Seems like the front door has slowed down. So I think we can go ahead and get started, Dan. We'll keep an eye on
All
them.
right. So let's go ahead and get started with the group agreements. Welcome everybody to the inaugural meeting of the Investments and Finance Subcommittee of SOCAC. And thank you so much for volunteering to be on this committee. We're gonna discover our role and our I don't know what I'm saying. We're going to figure this out together as we go along. Group agreements. These are taken largely from our SOCAC group agreements. We ask everybody to be fully here to the best of your ability. We presume everybody will treat each other with respect, using preferred pronouns, try to avoid interrupting, try to keep acronyms to a minimum, and please help us out and write them down in the chat box. If you hear somebody use an acronym, there are many of them. Let's be curious when there are disagreements. Make sure that we're keeping our disagreements to the topic and not taking things personally, and being interested in learning other people's point of view. Honor people with quieter voices. If you tend to be more quieter, try and nudge yourself to speak up. And if you tend to be one who jumps in a lot, try to sit back a little bit. We're here for systems issues. If there's individual issues or problems, let's not talk about those in the meeting, but you can nab somebody with expertise here and who can help you offline. Remember to stay focused on our purpose of improving our system of care. Let's be mindful of power dynamics. Some of us hold positions that make it easier for us to get things done than other folks. And do your best to avoid harming others. Try to be open to repairing any harm, and also try to be open to the idea that if somebody has done something harmful, it may not have been intentional. Any questions or comments on group agreements? Alrighty, let's go ahead and do introductions. I guess it will probably be smoothest if I call on people. So I will go ahead and start with our dedicated staff person, Christy.
All right. Thanks, Dan. I'm going to take the screen down just so we can see each other a little bit. And I think we'll take a little bit longer time to introduce ourselves. We've got a lot of new people joining this group, and it'll be nice to get to know each other a little bit more. So if we haven't met, my name's Christy Hudson. I use she, her pronouns. I am System of Care Transformation Manager and one of a few staff to the System of Care Advisory Council. And I'll be lead staff to this particular committee. So if there are particular needs or things or resources that you need, I'm kind of your go-to point person for that. In terms of my work on the council, do a lot of different things. I've been here since 2022, so just coming on 4 years, and really excited and proud of the work of the council, and especially the new strategic plan that we have just put out. That's really going to direct the work over our next 4 years. In terms of a hope I have for this particular committee, I am really hopeful that we can finally start to actually implement strategies that move towards a braided and blended funding landscape for the system of care. This is something that has been talked about forever, and I am really hopeful that this committee can actually take some action on that. So, really excited to be here with you all, and get some great work done.
Thank you, Christy. I'm going to go across the top of my screen, which means I'm next. I'm Dan Thoma. I use he, him pronouns. I've been on the council since the inception in 2020, representing carrier in the commercial industries, commercial insurance space. Recently retired from Moda Health, and so now I've got a little bit more time to devote to system of care work, which is kind of nice. I'm hoping that we work well together as a committee, and that we are able to, one of our key things that we'll be talking about in a little bit is we want to be able to start to wrap our arms around what monies are being spent, where they're being spent, how they're being spent, and get a clearer picture of sort of the whole financial structure of our system of care, and then use that to identify opportunities of where we can spend more wisely. So I'm hoping that we are very effective in doing that and identifying some good opportunities. Mr. Rudakowski.
Yeah. Hey, folks. I don't know if there's ever been a Mr. Rodakowski, but I'll take it. Hey, folks. Adam Rodakowski, he, him pronouns. I'm the director of foster care at Greater Oregon Behavioral Health in my day-to-day work. Um, I am also, along with Dan, one of the original kind of members of the System of Care Advisory Council, and have had the pleasure of serving as the chair for the last several years, which will end this year. I think my hope for this is similar to Christie's in that I feel like when we get around the table, we all are working in the same direction, and then we start talking about money. And people start to be like, well, I don't know if I can do that. So I feel like I'm going to say no. And my hope is that we can move agencies and folks to say yes, and we'll figure it out versus the kind of initial like, I'm not sure we can do that, so I'm going to pump the brakes on this. And I'm hoping we can kind of do a little bit of a mind shift in how we approach this of like, let's start at yes and figure out a way to get there, even if that is unclear in funding and mechanisms, whether that be state level or local systems of care, or whatever the case may be. So that's the dream for me.
Thank you, Adam. Cody.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Cody Welty, you see him pronouns. I'm a research analyst within Oregon Health Authority, but I'm assigned to all of us here at the System of Care Advisory Council. And so I'm effectively staff, even though I'm not technically staff. One goal that I have for our shared work in this space is, I guess, more of a personal one. I don't normally think about the finances side of things. And so this will be a good experience, I think, for me to kind of learn from everybody and hopefully apply data and analytics lens to the things that we're talking about and learn from everyone else.
Thank you, Cody. Andrew.
Yep, that's me. Andrew Grover. I'm Executive Director of Youth Villages here in Oregon, and I'm one of the old hats here too. I've been on the council since it started. But you won't have me to kick around much longer, so you have to suffer through one more year with me. That's it. Um, I use he, him pronouns, and I support all the things that's been said about the goals here. Trying to get to yes and all that. I think we can do a lot better in kind of braiding of funds. We talk about these things all the time, but it's rare that we do anything at any kind of scale that is impactful, which is my other kind of secret or not so secret objective here is to figure out how to know the impacts of whatever it is that we get funded. Because moving money around is great, getting kids served is great. Kids and families being better off because they got the services is really the main thing. So I'll hand it to somebody else. How about Ben Hoffman?
Good morning, everybody. I'm fairly new to this part of the world. My name is Ben Hoffman. I'm a he, him pronouns. I'm a general pediatrician at OHSU Dornbecker, the director of the Oregon Center for Children and Youth with Special Health Needs, and a past president of the American Academy of Pediatrics. And my interest is less in specifically the direct work of SOCAC than it is around a bigger integration of systems of care for kids. And I'm very grateful to Christy for bringing me into this part of the world. I'm very excited to learn more about the work that SOCAC has been doing and to help both learn and support, learn about and support work to provide bigger integration into all of the systems that serve kids. So delighted to be here. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us. Do you like to go by Dr. Hoffman or Ben, or
Ben,
do you
please.
care?
Yep. Thank you for asking that.
Jennifer.
Van Dyke, just making sure there's usually multiple Jennifers in any call. I'm Jennifer Van Dyke. I'm a lead budget analyst, and I am not kidding. My first budget when I came to OHA was SB1, which was the creation of the Systems of Care Advisory Council. So I have been with SOCAC since the very beginning and very much appreciate the hard work you guys do. And I think if I was to say one goal, I have spent my entire career, just focused on how to use finance and budget to best serve Oregonians. So I hope to take a lot of the ideas you have and see how we can actually make them happen from a financial standpoint. And I am going to pass it to Alex Medina.
Thank you, Jen. Good morning, everyone. My name is Alex Medina. I am the Deputy Budget Administrator for Medicaid. My involvement is everything related with the budget tracking and financial information. This is my first time participating in this meeting. Glad to be here. And I'll pass it to Drew Cohen. Andrew.
Good morning, everyone. I am Drew Cohen. I work with Alex and Jen. Very excited to be on this team. I think this is maybe my second meeting with SOCAC and first with the finance group. So I would love to bring my just education, master's in public administration, focusing on finance, into this realm and see how we can help out each other. So looking forward to doing that in the future.
Thank you, Drew. How about Jennifer Schwartz?
Hi, thank you. I'm Jennifer Schwartz, and I'm the System of Care Manager in Lynn, Benton, and Lincoln counties for Intercommunity Health Network. And my goals would be the same as the ones I've already been mentioned. Definitely move to yes. More braided funding on a very small scale. My position was funded through a braided funding model regionally, and also to ensure that the needs of youth and families and communities inform investments, because we see locally that those investments are most effective and cost effective. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jennifer. Molly?
Good morning. I'm Molly Rogers, and I'm with Wasco County Department of Youth Services, and I love the words "just say yes." I've been around a day or two or 30, and 30 years ago, in my first job at Wallowa County, actually we ran a campaign of just say yes when it came to funding. And so any partner around the table who brought up an idea, everyone else said yes to it as a default. And so that's very exciting. I'm glad to be here with System of Care and bring a county perspective as well as the juvenile justice perspective where it's appropriate. So thank you.
Thank you, Molly. Hannah?
Oh, fun. I get to go after Molly. Anna Williams, she, her pronouns. I am the director of the System of Care Advisory Council. I love the let's just say yes and figure it out. I would love that to be a goal. I will say Molly has a broader perspective than just the juvenile legal system. She's been working in our community for 30 years on behalf of kids and their families, and she knows a lot about a lot. So really grateful to have so many of these different people in this room. It's a really exciting room. I would love to see that Cody in this space understands the connection between data and finance and the connection between finance and data, and that we starting in this room and expanding out can really help our systems think better about how the way we count things indicates how we fund things and the other way around. So that is my particular goal for this space. And if we're popcorning, I would like to call on Soren.
Good morning, folks. Soren Metzger, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. And I am the Assistant Administrator of Operations with the ODHS Office of Developmental Disability Services. And I think my goal or hope for this work is that the leaders get the information that they need to be able to pursue meaningful change here in the state of Oregon. Thanks.
Thank you, Soren. Jill?
Hello, Jill Archer. I use she, her pronouns. I am currently the Policy Director and Chief of Staff for the Behavioral Health Division at the Oregon Health Authority. So that's the role I'm here in. And approximately 17 years ago, I helped set up the system of care in Washington County and wraparound. So this is near and dear to my heart, and spent the last 10 years on the CCO side, and so have seen opportunities for braided funding, and I'm excited to have this conversation and see how we can make that more to scale. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, Jill. Allison.
Hi, I'm Allison Stark. I'm the CEO of Albertina Kerr, she, her pronouns. And for me, because I love to be controversial, so I'm gonna do it. I love the idea of yes, kind of. I actually think, to be honest, I think it's good to be a little skeptical when it comes to money and what you're investing in. So I may be the naysayer in the group that's kind of like, time out. Do we know why we're doing this? There's a lot of inefficiencies in our system. We spend a lot of money in places we really shouldn't be spending money, and the money's not actually seeing the people we're trying to get the money to and the people we're trying to support. And so for me, I think for me, the goal is to understand how braiding works here in Oregon and how we can efficiently braid different funding sources to make sure that we're not, for example, paying for something that could be paid for through a different funding stream that actually gets Medicaid matched to do it as well, right? So I think being smart and being thoughtful is really important. And if we can get to the feeling that people feel supported and feel like we're saying yes, then that is a win all the way around.
Great. Thank you, Allison. Mary Michelle.
Hi there, I'm from the Legislative Fiscal Office and I'm just an observer.
All right. Thank you for joining us. Okay, I believe we got everybody, but is there anyone that we skipped? All right, 100%. Maybe the last time we achieved that here. So this is sort of our get acquainted meeting, and one of our objectives is to take a look at our charter and try to be clear about what this committee is all about. So, Christy, would you bring up the charter for us?
I sure can. I think the other thing is that this charter is not yet finalized. So if there are particular suggestions or things that we need to clarify in here, please, we'd love to hear your thoughts.
And can you make that a bit bigger? Beautiful. And I'm wondering if either Christy or Anna can sort of walk us through this, including some of the thinking that went into configuring this committee the way it's configured, as in terms of, like, when we restructured all of the committees in SOCAC, how and why did we end up with this particular scope for this committee?
Yeah, that's great, Dan. I can kind of walk through that a little bit.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this particular committee is the Investment and Finance Committee. We just put out a brand new strategic plan for the 2026 to 29 kind of time period. This is a primary mandate the SOCAC has in terms of our authorizing statute and kind of what we're really supposed to be doing here. There are a number of strategies and actions in the plan that really speak to the work we need to do around our finances and fiscal systems. So we thought, let's put together a committee for that. Historically, we had a lot of committees, way more than we have now. So we've condensed a little bit. We did have a grants committee kind of in for the old plan. That committee was pretty narrow in terms of providing direction and oversight to the grants that we put out to local systems of care into the 9 federally recognized tribes. This committee will have a little bit of insight and recommendation on those funding streams, but is going to be much more broader in terms of really understanding our broader financial strategy. And this is all kind of also very aligned with national system of care practice, and there's a number of tools that we'll be using that other states have used to really develop their financial strategy. But specifically within the strategic plan, and if you haven't seen that yet, I'm happy to provide some links. You can take a look at what's in that plan. There are really 2 actions that we're going to be digging into. One is to conduct a fiscal assessment to inform strategic, sustainable, and equitable investments. And the second is to audit our current funding programs to improve accountability. Dan or Anna, is there anything else you want to add in terms of like the purpose of this particular committee or questions people might have?
Yeah, just a little bit more on what you said around sort of the broader financial strategy. And I think when we're talking about that, we're talking about broader financial strategy as a state with regard to the children's system sort of writ large, not the SOCAC's broader financial strategy around grants. Like we've expanded this focus from pretty narrow and very specific to much more focused on what money's coming into the children's system. How is that money being allocated? Are we able to identify outcomes on those investments, right? And what are the strategies that the agencies and the legislature are using to determine where those investments need to go and whether we're sustaining them or, continuing to chase the shiny thing or, how we can be more impactful with the ways we're spending the money.
Thanks, Anna. Yeah, so just to trickle down and then on just sort of that dual focus, there's the SOCAC budget itself, and part of that budget includes grants to local systems of care. So that's a part that the grants committee worked on previously, as well as the larger SOCAC budget. But then zooming out, we want to look at like all the financial inputs into the system of care and what are the outcomes that we get associated with those inputs. And so related to that first bullet, 3.5.4, conduct a fiscal assessment to inform strategic, sustainable, and equitable investments. We'll get into this down the road, but just as a preview, we are working on a request for proposals to engage an outside entity to do a comprehensive assessment working for us. So we don't have to do we don't have to pound the pavement ourselves on that work, but we'll contract out and oversee that work. Questions and comments from
Yeah, I have a question. So
yeah.
You say a comprehensive assessment. Can you talk a little more? Comprehensive assessment of what?
A comprehensive financial assessment of what monies coming from what sources are being spent on what services, and again, what the outcomes are for those services. Christy or Anna, you want to elaborate on that any?
Yeah, so Andrew, the National Training and Technical Assistance Center has a guide that I can share, but basically we're going to be looking at services and supports for youth 0 to 25 who have complex behavioral health needs. It might not be every service in the universe. We might need to tailor and scope a little bit to the services that we're most concerned about. Like as examples, right? Like how much are we spending on IBHT? How much are we spending on therapeutic foster care? How much are we spending on respite? We'll, maybe make a list, right? And then with our agency partners, ask them how much was actually spent on those services. Try to understand some themes. So we'll have a much better understanding of the amount of money, a little bit of what we do in the fiscal report, but I'm imagining it'll be a lot more detailed, and disaggregated. Also, really hoping that we can tap into the all payers, all claims data so that it's not solely Medicaid data. That's kind of, we're already exploring how much of that APAC data would be available to us so we could look kind of, more comprehensively about of coverage for these things. Um, and then working with that contractor to get some recommendations about, looks like you're spending a lot of money over here. You could do this differently and spend it over here instead. Does that help, Andrew?
Or leverage Medicaid on these certain things that we're not leveraging, or whatever those recommendations are as we gather the data.
Will we be talking about the scope of that contract at some point? Because to me, I think understanding all those Medicaid funding flows are really important. There's a whole bunch of other funding, in child welfare, in developmental disabilities, and it is sort of in the kind of purview of what we're talking about. So
yeah, I think scoping this project is going to be really important, and the more thorough a job we can do scoping at the outset, the more likely we are to be pleased with the results and find that they give us information that we're really looking for. So I think that's going to be a significant piece of work for us over the next few months. Molly.
I really appreciate the conversation about scope. And I want to bring a different set of money to the table that I think is lost and often, not lost, but often hidden. And that's local government dollars that pay for things that no one else pays for. And they're often, the strings attached are ones that local communities have created to remove barriers. So when we do this, I think it's important that we look at Medicaid, we look at all of the state acronyms and alphabet soup, but I think also if communities can find a way to share their story in it, I think it would be really powerful.
Thank you. That's a great point, and it's one of the complexities, right? Especially when we talk about blended and braided, is where are all these the different sources coming from, and how does that relate to also the population that's in scope for us? More questions and comments from committee members?
about the whole charter?
Well, about the purpose, unless so we can go on if there are no more on this piece. Anna writes that she also wants to learn more about how local funding has been able to remove barriers and what the state could learn from that. Okay, Christy, should we?
All right. So in terms of our expected outcomes and deliverables, this is kind of like for the next year. So this charter document, we'll, review it maybe annually and make adjustments, but just for kind of the initial 12 to 18 months here together, we'll complete that financial mapping or financial assessment. With that information, develop some sort of recommendations around it, braided and blended funding, and our broader financing strategy. We will be responsible for developing and making recommendations for SOCAC's budget specifically. I think we get about $8 million, Anna, is that about right, from the legislature to use over the biennium. As an example, for the 25 to 27 biennium, we've already allocated a lot of those dollars, but we have some money that we have not yet kind of planned what we're going to do with. And we'll be looking to this committee to help us figure out how we want to spend that money. We'll talk a little bit about that at the next meeting. We also have some reports that we need to submit. There's a fiscal report that we submit every other year to the legislature. This committee will be helping with that. And then overseeing grants and contracts administered by the council specifically. This will be our regular meeting time with some exceptions. So for example, the May meeting, we've moved up a week due to the holidays. We might make some adjustments. Thank you for your flexibility in that. We'll be referencing SOCAC's bylaws. If you haven't seen those, I can send those out after the meeting. Quorum is 5 voting members, and we'll make sure that's clarified in kind of the final because there was a question about that.
How much are questions about those 2 items? Okay,
Well, I do have one. I was just waiting to see if somebody else was going to talk. I don't want to be the only one talking. Trying to honor our agreements. So we have 9 meetings this year, right? We have 9 meetings left. Each meeting is going to be an hour, right? So we've got a pretty long list of pretty complicated things to do in 9 meetings in an hour, especially when we throw in grants and contract administration, which is fine. I'm not going to debate that. I'm just wondering the kind of reality of how into it are we going to be able to really get. And I think we might need to be talking about some sort of offline kind of work groups or something like that, which might already be in your mind. But if we kind of skim the surface on this stuff for the next year, I know that's no one's intent, but it sometimes happens. I just want to be mindful of that.
So yeah, I was thinking about that in particular regarding some of those scope questions, and we'll be meeting with with whatever contractor we choose for that. So there's going to be a lot of work around that, and that I think is going to have to happen outside of these meetings. So folks who are interested in doing some of that work, let us know about your interest in that. And am I right, Christy and Anna, that as long as we don't have a quorum, we can get together and do these kinds of work? Or what are the public meeting rules around that?
Yeah. So I'll let Anna speak to the public meetings stuff, but in terms of like ad hoc work groups for these, content or topic specific areas are going to need some focus outside of these committee meetings. That is definitely like something SOCAC does and intends to do. And so very much a part of what this work can look like operationally to get it done. And I believe those work groups, if they're convened by us, do have to meet the public meeting laws, correct?
Yep, we would always be needing to follow public meeting law. I think it might be down on the next page, but we talk about maybe calling together work groups. So it may be that there are folks, a smaller subset of this committee that we want to say, hey, this is the work these are the folks who are going to do the work of deciding whoever the contractor is going to be, or meeting with the contractor for 3 times to get sure that we're all on the same page, right? That we'll break it up, because I don't think all of us need to necessarily be. It's like some of us in this room can't do that work because we're state employees or whatever. So we'll be setting ourselves up with work groups to do some of the work, and the budget in terms of the System of Care Advisory Council for this biennium is set, except for this small amount of money we need to allocate, right? So we're not going to be doing a budget build from the ground up, right? Like there's a lot of this stuff that is more guidance and advice, or taking a small component of it and rolling forward with it than doing sort of all of this stuff as we're starting this first year of the committee. Over time, I think this committee's capacity will grow and we'll be doing more, maybe a ground up budget build or something like that. But at this point, the 25-27 biennial budget is pretty well set. We just have about 700,000-ish that needs to be allocated. So, Andrew, to your point, we're like dipping toes into some of these things and not necessarily jumping all the way in year one with these, 8 meetings we have remaining or whatever they are. I don't know if that helps you think about our capacity. Thumbs up. Good enough.
Okay.
A little bit more about like our authority, as Anna said. You will have some authority over SOCAC's budget. With regards to the agency budgets, right? OHA, DHS, OIA, we will be able to make recommendations to our state agency partners. But we do not have this final decision-making authority over those budgets. We have been inviting our agency partners to attend future meetings to talk a little bit about what they have planned for the 27 to 29 biennium. So that'll be kind of an opportunity to start having a better grasp of how those agencies are putting those budgets together and kind of hear your thoughts on them. So that'll be, I think, a good way to kind of get some grounding in what those look like. This committee will be chaired by Dan Toma. Thank you, Dan. We are hoping to identify another co-chair for this committee. So if you feel like that is something you would like to do in partnership with Dan, we would love to talk to you. Dan, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about what that would look like or your ideas around that, but
Yeah, that would be terrific if we can get somebody to step up to do that. And in particular, one of the reasons I'm interested in that is that I will be aging off of SOCAC at the end of this year. And so if somebody wants to, somebody can join as co-chair now, then that can help that person build the build the experience to carry on chairing the committee potentially next year.
And Anna, does the co-chair have to be an appointed member, or can it be anybody on the committee? I forgot where we landed on that.
I forgot where we landed on that too. So far, co-chairs are all appointed members of the committee of the council, but we'll have to go back and look at the bylaws and see if we opened that up or not. Christy, I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
Can we nominate people?
Go for it.
I nominate Jill Archer.
Jill, do you accept the
Allison's feeling feisty today.
I know.
I am. I'm coming out. I'm in. I'm in.
You're ready to
I'm
go.
Happy to have the conversation. I just want to make sure that I can allocate the time that's needed. So maybe we could just have a quick chat offline.
Okay, that sounds great, Jill.
And I'm not an appointed member of the council either. So.
Yes, we'd have to confirm.
Just as an alternate, I have met very few people in my life that would be as qualified as Ms. Allison Stark to be the vice chair. And she is, I believe, an appointed member of the council, and also her term doesn't end at the end of this year like mine, Dan, and Andrew's. So
and turnaround is fair play.
I know. Well, you saw I was first out of the gate because I was reading the landscape and I was like, I see what's going to happen here because all these guys are rolling off and I'm the only one that's not. Jill, I thought you were on the SOCAC.
I was until I switched roles. So.
Right. Okay. I am happy to have that conversation and would be honored and am very flattered that you would think of me.
Well, this is great. We've got two potential people who would either one would be absolutely fantastic in this role. So we'll have these conversations with you between now and our next meeting. Thank you so much.
Okay, what else? Public participation. These are all public meetings. Anyone is welcome to attend. We will be kind of limiting public engagement to a public comment period that we'll have to pause for here in about 5-6 minutes. So that will be a little bit of a change from our prior committees where it was a little bit kind of loosey-goosey. Anybody could participate. We're going to be a little bit more consistent with that. Timeline and some of our known milestones. Again, we've kind of covered all of this. But in terms of what the next year to year and a half look like, we hope to have some recommendations for the final 25-27 budget for SOCAC specifically. That'll be going to happen by the end of this summer. We'll get started on that fiscal mapping and assessment work, hopefully by late this summer. We'll be asking you to evaluate outcomes of the 25 to 27 System of Care grants. We give $200,000 apiece to each of the local systems of care and then $200,000 apiece to each of the 9 federally recognized tribes. That money has been going out since the 2019-21 biennium, so quite a bit of money has gone out. The current grants in December of 2027, we get some reports from those folks every 6 months. So we'll be kind of filling you in on what's happening with those dollars, and using that, we'll be asking you for some recommendations on what to do for the $27 to $29, in addition to kind of like the broader budget for SOCAC. Our next fiscal report is not due until next December, so that's great. There are a couple of examples of that report in the charter, and I sent those out just to kind of provide some grounding and background for those who are a little bit newer to this work. Any questions or?
You skipped over that we'll develop the fiscal sustainability plan starting in the fall of 2027, and that is sort of that's what we'll do with this fiscal mapping and assessment data that will be the foundation for the fiscal sustainability plan. So that is sort of long range work that will be making recommendations to other agencies and to the legislature around how to actually implement what would be our fiscal sustainability plan. And we don't have legal authority to make them do anything again, so we can make recommendations, we can draw a beautiful picture. How other people choose to respond to that is out of our hands.
So what feels like a somewhat more manageable scope, we will have at our next meeting at least one request for some of the unallocated dollars within the SOCAC budget. And I think, Anna, you've got potentially 1 or 2 others.
I have a few, yeah. I'll put them together, and Christy and Dan and I will meet and figure out, Dan, sort of what you're thinking, how you see this all fitting together, and how you want to bring this to your committee.
Okay, so we'll get to actually do some of the real work at our next meeting and dip our toes into it in that respect in terms of how we want to allocate some of the dollars that are in the SOCAC budget for the current biennium. I know that for me, the idea of like looking at OHA budget or OYA budget or ODHS budget, anything like that, and making recommendations for sustainability, that feels pretty daunting. And just want to open up for like thoughts from staff and or other committee members, like how do we even wrap our brains around that kind of a task, or how do we get started digging into it?
So what we've kind of thought, Dan, was, we've invited our agencies right now are in what's called the budget build process. So they're coming up with their agency recommended budgets that they're going to propose for the legislature. they're at the beginning of that process. The legislature doesn't start again until late February or late January, early February of 2027. So inviting them in to come and say, here's what we're thinking, here's the hard decisions that we're stuck with, here's how we're thinking about making those difficult decisions. Like they're going to give us the 70,000 foot view of sort of where they are. And we're going to ask them our questions and we're going to put our priorities out there. So those of you all who are state employees probably will not have priorities that you can share, right? But those of us who are coming in from other lenses saying, I'm worried that you're cutting too much out of this, or this is what I'm seeing in the field, and I'm fearful that we're twice funding this because we heard the same thing from DHS, or child welfare and ODDS, but are you guys talking to each other, right? So what we're trying to do is really facilitate cross-system communication, Dan, in this agency recommended budget build process time, and that we're asking them to consider each other's efforts as they're doing this. That is sort of the role that we're playing as a coordinator and facilitator at this time. Then we'll have a pretty clear idea of where their sort of broad goals are, and we'll come back maybe in the springtime and say, okay, are they meeting those broad goals? Did everybody invest in the shiny thing and nobody invested in sustainability or maintenance funding, right? And making recommendations around how do we sort of share that, like, this is fun and exciting and everybody likes it, and so the legislature might fund it, versus this is just what it takes to get the job done and isn't as shiny or pretty. But we actually have to go advocate for that funding because it's foundational to the system actually functioning. That's sort of what my view is of how we will at least start this, and then we'll just get better at it with practice over time.
That's super helpful. Allison has her hand up, and it's 11:50, which is public comment time. So I'd like to put a pause and let's allow any public comment. I don't see anybody, but if there is anybody here, we'll set our thoughts. Is there anybody here to make public comment?
Mary would be the only person not a member of the committee. So unless Mary already thinks she wants to share, I think we can move ahead.
All right. So thank you, Anna, for sharing those thoughts. That at first I'm like, oh yeah, that's like, yeah, we can do that. And then it's like, oh wow, this still sounds really daunting. Allison.
So this is kind of a question around relationship to the governor's office, the SOCAC relationships to the governor's office. And I guess, I think it's always, one does not necessarily want to be in opposition or again, with what the governor's office priorities are. And so I guess my question in looking at the charter and kind of what our charge is, does there need to be some pre-conversations around parameters? I understand we're independent, but I also understand we have to work with, not in opposition, right? And I think it's a little bit different with the governor's office than it is with the different agencies and departments, right? I think that's a different relationship that we have there. So I just wanted to ask Anna, Christy, what your guys' thoughts about how to navigate that so that there is alignment.
I feel like that's a me question, Christy. Yeah, so they know that we've made these requests to folks, and I keep them very apprised of our work so that we are not surprising them, and they do let us know if they're like, whoa, 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 you're scaring us. We often scare them, and our job is in many ways to push them a little bit. So if we, as you have seen previously, Allison, if we get out of alignment, sometimes we will be asked to take a step back, and then that'll be me coming in and saying, okay, y'all, we took a step too far and we got to take one step back, and that's direction from the governor's office.
I've also just told, just to be clear, like, we're here to try and make decisions that improves the lives of children and family in Oregon, and sometimes we'll bump up against folks, and I am a rather large object to be thrown under the bus, but I am willing as the chair. So I have shared that with Anna. So
appreciate that, Adam. Yeah, so and it does feel like part of our job, and I think you are particularly skilled at this, is like to bring the governor's office along, right? Like if we see where we need to go and we don't think they're there yet, is there some way that we can get them get them to align with us. Ultimately, we do want to align with them, but even better if we can get them to align with us. Andrew.
Yeah, so the one thing I would add to the charter conversation is my own personal belief is that the upcoming legislative session is going to be very challenging. And we're going to see the impacts of HR1 at a level that we have not seen before. And so I get a little bit anxious about a timeline where we're out into the spring and middle of next year before we have our, a sense of kind of recommendations or something. And maybe I got that wrong, but all I'm urging is some urgency. And not that, and I know this stuff goes slowly, but where we can speed it up, we should speed it up because, we've got budget people from each of the agencies. We've got LFO, we got all the rest of you certified smart people. And so I'm hoping that we can go a little faster in the spirit of being as prepared for the upcoming session as we can.
So Andrew, that brings up a related thought for me, which is as we do as we scope the fiscal assessment, should a piece of that assessment be anticipated effects of the HR1 or whatever it's the OBBB, like what? Okay, this is what it was in the current biennium, right? But what do we know about what trains are coming at us in the coming biennium?
Exactly. I would say yes to that. But...
Looks like that's getting written down as a recommendation. Okay.
We have a couple of minutes left.
I don't know if you can see Ben has a hand up, Dan.
Oh, I didn't see that. Thank you.
Thanks. I just want to bring up two things that I think are related that we haven't discussed yet. Specifically, in response to thinking about the impacts of HR1 and CCO 3.0, that I think are can be important levers for the work that we're trying to do, which are making sure we're focusing on EPSDT and necessary, appropriate services that will ensure that kids can grow, develop, and attend school. And also the concepts of network adequacy, because I think especially within behavioral health for youth, you all know, I don't have to tell anybody what a shit show it is. So thanks. I just want to make sure that that's part of I see where it fits in with our charge and in the charter, but it's not specifically there. And those are two things that we have uniquely, that uniquely impact kids and have authority.
That's great, Ben. Yeah, I think, just noticing the time, I think, Dan, what I can do is incorporate these thoughts into the charter and then bring it back next month. And maybe at that time we can take a formal, like, it's approved.
That sounds great. Anybody holding on to a thought that can be expressed in 3 minutes or less that you'll regret not having said? All right, thank you, everybody. This is great to have such excellent participation, and the depth of expertise that we have here is really encouraging. So thank you, and we will see you in less than a month because we're not having our normal meeting day because of the holiday.
Yeah. And then also I put a post-meeting survey in the chat. This is a new process we're using. So this is a way to kind of collect your feedback, your ideas. You'll see it on the regular. Would love if you had something to share that you didn't quite get in the room today. That's a great place to put it.
Highly encourage you to make use of that. Let us know how the meeting could be run better, or other thoughts about process of the meeting. Thank you, and we'll see you soon.
Bye, everybody.